Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So, ilm sarf, what is this science? So, it's known as ilm sarf or ilm tasrif, which is a permutation of this word. So, sarf, literally in Arabic, it means to change, right? To change something. For example, the word sarf can use mean to deflect something. Something's coming your way, you deflect it. Of course, you've changed its direction, and from this also comes like the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَتَصْرِيفِ الرِّيَاحِ, the alteration, the changing of the winds, one of the great signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where He brings life-giving rain. Pollen is taken from one location to another. All of these things from Allah's generosity. So the tasrif or riyah is that the direction of the wind changes, right? It doesn't always come from the north or the south. It's constantly being moved and altered into different directions. That's where sarf comes from. And before we go into the technical meaning, you can see how it relates to, because sarf is a science which deals with the individual components of the Arabic language. You're looking at the words, whereas, for example, with ilm nahu, with Arabic grammar, the whole point of Arabic grammar is the final vowel in a construction, right? Where daraba zaydun amran, right? So why is there a dhamma on zaydun? Why the dhammas there? Why the fathas on amran? These words, when they're placed together in a construction, give a particular meaning, and ilm al-nahu lets us reach that meaning through the signs that are present on the words. But ilm al-sarf doesn't look at words in the construction. We're looking at a word on its own, and because of the richness of the Arabic language, you can take a single word, and you can change its structure to give different meanings. So just like with English, you have the word write as a command, or writing as an action, right? Written, something done in the past. So just like that with Arabic, we have the same process where words are changed. So having understood this, it is essential to master this science. Anyone wishing to study more advanced texts, anyone who does not have this will definitely struggle. And there are meanings that are learnt through sarf which you cannot learn, which impact every other science. I'll give you an example. I was having a conversation with someone once, and he'd rushed through certain texts without mastering Arabic, and so we were discussing a chapter in fiqh called hawala, where someone takes on another person's debt, saying, I will pay your debt for you. Now he's completely free to do this, but once he's taken this responsibility on, legally he's bound to it. So we were discussing, and I asked him, okay, what does this mean? I said, wala ilzama illa bil iltizam. So I said, ilzam and iltizam, these two words, what's the difference, right? So they come from the same root, lazima. The meaning is wala ilzam, no one can force this payment upon the person who accepts the debt, illa bil iltizam, except through him actually taking on the responsibility. So alzama, to force someone or to make someone do something, iltazama, to accept doing this, right? And so because he didn't understand the difference between alzama and iltazama, he didn't understand the text, so it has consequences later. And you find people that haven't mastered this element of Arabic, their reading of Arabic is weak. They can't identify forms. When there should be a fatha, they place a kasra. When there's a kasra, they place a dhamma. And it affects the meaning, because in Arabic, even with Arabic grammar, they're married. The meaning and the grammar are married together. right? They're married to each other in the sense that you cannot fully deduce the meaning without having a grasp of what's happening in terms of grammar and sarf, and you can't fully grasp the grammar without having some idea of the meaning. So there's this partnership. So with sarf, the science developed alongside nahu, right? And so, as you know, there's a difference over how did nahu start, and many of the ulama say it was Ali ibn Abi Talib and Abu al-Aswad ad-Du'ali, one of the tabi'een who was living in Basra at the time, an expert in Arabic. And Sayyidina Ali explained to him that the basis of Arabic grammar is the noun, the verb, and the particle. And then he told him, he set him on this course. He said, go and deduce the rest from your knowledge. So, but the actual ascription of ilm al-sarf on its own goes to the Kufan scholar Mu'adh ibn Muslim al-Harra. So Mu'adh ibn Muslim al-Harra was the uncle of Abu Ja'far al-Ru'asi. And Abu Ja'far al-Ru'asi and Mu'adh ibn Muslim were the first generation of scholars of Arabic in Kufa. They went to Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi in Basra, this great polymath who had travelled in the Arabian Peninsula, learning from the Bedouins of his time, returned and taught. And the man was a genius, in every sense of the word. There's a story, someone gave him a concoction of liquids, and he just through smell alone, I think there were 16 liquids in there, and oils and whatever, just through smell alone he identified every single one. MashaAllah. So Mu'adh ibn Muslim al-Harra this was his passion, sarf. And then from after him it developed, and many of the ulama developed the science just like Nahu was developed, and eventually it was separated from Nahu and it was considered an independent science. So what is the science of sarf about? Let's have a look at this. So the author says in defining the science of sarf, he says, know, i'lam, that the meaning of tasrif in the Arabic language is to change, as we've discussed. And the technical meaning of this science, what does it mean, is to change root words. So the root word is the word is mithal, right, which is in English it's actually translated as an example, right? So you take a form and you're going to alter it into different permutations of the same word. So he says to change root words, so these amthila, into different word patterns to express specific intended meanings which cannot be understood except through these patterns. And so he's put a lot into this. So basically what we can understand is, so with the science of sarf, firstly you're going to change root words. So you have a root word, and these root words you develop, and you can alter them into different forms by knowing what type of word it is, what type of letters it has. Does it have strong letters, or does it have weak letters? And if it has weak letters, how are you going to change it into one form or another? And so why would you do this? To express specific intended meanings. Now this is fantastic, because Arabic is very rich, and you can alter a word, you can change a word into a structure which gives a very specific meaning. So which is why Arabic it's a skill to translate Arabic, right? And like, for example, if you were to say in English you'd say the man who is eating, right, or the eater. There's a very specific word for it, al-akil, right? And then you can change it into al-akila for the feminine, akilun, akilat for the plural, for the masculine, feminine. You can alter this very easily, and so it gives you the ability to express precise meanings with the minimum wordage, right? So that's one of the benefits of this. And so also these meanings are specific to Arabic, and you cannot understand the meaning except through this pattern in many cases. For example, you have the pattern fa'il, right? So this is the doer, the active participle, someone who is doing something, and generally most of the time you can't understand the meaning of someone doing this particular action except through this pattern, right? There are other patterns for it, but generally the pattern that is recognized as the pattern of the doer, the fa'il, to express the meaning of someone doing something, you would use this. And the same with maf'ul, the pattern of an object to which something has happened, right? So these meanings are used and expressed through these patterns, and the benefit of this is tremendous because you can take, for example, ya musamman bil asami kulliha, a line of one of the poets. So you got ya musamman, so ya, he's speaking to someone, musamman, right? So bil asami, right? So the word musamman and asami both come from the root, which is ism, which is a name, and then we've taken, so then he's used a form which is used to name someone, right? So you say samma, yusammi tasmiyatan, fahuwa musammin, right? The one who gives someone a name, wadaka musamman. So he's identified that the one who he's been spoken to has many names, right? Kulliha, all of them. And then the word asami is also derived from ism, which is from ism, which goes to asma and asami. So by knowing this, you can it's also an easy way of identifying the meanings of words, right? And also you can recognize what the root and asl of a word is. For example, qala, right? Qala, it's asl. You know what qala is for the past tense. So to identify the present tense, you need to have an understanding of what the past tense of qala is. So qala is originally qawala. So because the waw is a weak letter, it's made into an alif, so after the qaf, so qala. So for the present, you'd say yaqulu, right? And even there's something that's been done. So this is basically what ilm sarf does, and knowing it and understanding it gives one a great deal of mastery of the Arabic language, and one's understanding of Arabic is enhanced. Alongside this, many patterns have particular meanings, right? So for example, the pattern istaf'ala, right? We'll come to all of these. Istaf'ala has a meaning of to ask, to seek something. So when you say istaghfara, right, he asked for forgiveness, astaghfirullah, the ist is at the beginning to show that he's seeking. But it also means, one of its meanings, which is understood through the context, is to believe something, right? Istaktharahu, he believed that something to be plenty, great in number, right? Istaqallahu, right? Like he believes something to be small in number. So there are many meanings that you can derive through these forms. So that's what is understood from the ilm al-sarf. So having said this, after looking at ilm al-sarf and some of its benefits, the author then he went on to discuss verbs. That he's going to define verbs and the patterns of verbs, and we'll take it from there, inshallah ta'ala. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.